Gina DeSimone. Thanks for sitting down and talking.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can you introduce yourself to everybody, who you are, where you're from?
Yeah, I'm Gina DeSimone. I'm a photographer based here in Philadelphia. I am from Ohio originally, got to live in Alabama for a year, and then I moved here.
When did you move here? Just curious.
I moved here in 2018.
Okay, so that's fairly recent. How did you get started?
Not fairly recent. It seems fairly recent in our heads, but really that's 7 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about.
That is crazy when you think about it. How did you get started in photography? Like, were you one of the people who had a camera since you were like 3 years old, or did you pick it up later on in life?
Yeah. So my start into photography is like a little serendipitous. I, in high school, was friends with this guy, Pete, who I was in the band with. And I was a percussionist, so a female percussionist is generally hated amongst 16-year-old boys. But he was very kind to me when like not everybody else was. So I definitely took a liking to him and wanted to be friends with him. And he picked up film photography randomly. And I was always kind of drawn to cameras, so I would follow him around and be like, what are you shooting? What's that? Tell me this. Teach me everything. And he used to hand me his camera when he got to the last few frames on a roll and just tell me like, here, go shoot a few photos in the band room, like take photos of your friends. And when he would get the rolls developed, he would show me all of his photos and show me my photos. Like the last few frames were like my work. And I just remember the excitement of waiting for the film to come back. And I was drawn to it, and so he told me where I can get a film camera. And so it was a local thrift store in my hometown, which I didn't have a car at the time. I was in high school and had to like convince one of my friends to bring me there. We get to the thrift store. I go into the back where Pete had told me the film cameras would be, and there was none. So we're leaving, dejected. I was so excited to start my film photography career, and then right behind the front counter where they keep the higher end items, I saw a camera. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what that camera is. I don't know anything about it, but that's the only camera in this entire store. I need to buy it. It's $25. Again, I'm in high school, don't have a car, don't have money. So I haggle them down to $5 and I leave with my first film camera, a rangefinder, which I didn't know what a rangefinder was at the time.
Wow.
Now I know to start your photography journey on a rangefinder is kind of psychotic, and that's a big undertaking, but I do feel like I started on such a challenging camera, and then that definitely, once I switched to digital, once I switched to SLRs, I was like, oh, this is a lot easier than that monstrous thing I used to shoot with, which I still shoot with that same camera now occasionally. I love shooting with rangefinders. My point being, it was serendipitous. I ended up getting into the film photography community in my area. And I was online and saw this photo that I knew was film, and I commented who took the photo. Turns out it was this guy that was another film photographer in the area. I reached out to him, we got to talking. He's like, oh, what do you shoot on? You know, like how did you get started? And I go, oh, I'm not a film photographer. Like I just admire everybody else's work. Like I just got my first camera. And he goes, oh, what do you have? And I said, a Minolta Highmatic 7S. And he said, did you get it at the Village Thrift by chance? And I said, yes, I did. I just got it. And he said, I was there a few weeks ago and I saw it, but I didn't buy it because I just had a feeling somebody else needed it more than me.
Smooth.
So no, but yeah, so that was my start to photography. It felt like it was kind of just meant to be.
And I'm gonna fast forward a bit. Now that you're a professional photographer, and I came up in the online teach yourself, YouTube, online education era, how do you compare like the traditional path with the newer path now of self-taught online education photographers? Like, do you feel as though you got some substantial benefit from the school education?
Yeah, so I purposely chose my university because it was an applied program, meaning I don't have a bachelor's of art, I have a bachelor's of science. There's certain stipulations that a college has to follow to offer a bachelor's of arts. You need a well-rounded artistic knowledge. You need to learn how to draw, to paint. and I cannot draw more than a stick figure. I really didn't want to spend 4 years learning different artistic methods when I knew that I was a photographer and that I wanted to photograph. Something that would be more worth my time and my money would be to get to be in a studio and learn how to actually make money off of something that I love doing, and to learn about lighting and composition and things that I didn't know when I was 17, 18 years old. That's why I purposely chose the university I went with. I was only considering those types of programs where you had more studio knowledge built into your program. I got really lucky with the route I went. My professor was just like this very old school, photographically styled man, and he had a lot of the older traditions built into the program. So it wasn't just here, let me set up the lighting. And because when I was 17, I thought that's just all I need to learn, is just how to set up the lighting, how to do what I need to do. But he was more wanting to teach you the artistic side of things and want to teach you the methods and the reasons why we're doing things, and the studying the greats and the people that you're emulating without even realizing that you're emulating in the modern world. And what's popular now has been dictated by the past. There are applied programs now that are just teaching you like more of a trade, and his program that he had designed was still integrating that artistic approach, which I think really helped me not just learn how to set up the lights, which anybody can go onto a photography set and assist and learn those things, but he was also teaching you how to cultivate a creative eye. I think I meet a lot of people on a daily basis who are knowledgeable about lighting, who are knowledgeable about video editing, who are knowledgeable about these different things that you need in a commercial setting to make money, but then maybe they lack that creative vision or the creative eye. And I don't think that that's something that you inherently just have, but rather I think that is something you have to cultivate. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes in a college setting, because they do want you to have a well-rounded education, they are pushing more for you to take more liberties and push yourself a little bit more. Whereas on a daily basis, if nobody's pushing you to do that, you have to push yourself to do that. So I think that you can get all of the knowledge that you need to get outside of college. It's just that when you're in those four walls, you do have mentorship built in pushing you. And if you don't go to college for photography, it's really easy to just take a paycheck, be an assistant, make your $500 a day, and then go home and just get stuck in that rut. And I saw my peers outside of school doing that. Whereas I think it's important to not just learn about photography, which is what I've learned later in life, that maybe that bachelor's of arts does make a little sense. It is nice to study painters and artists and people that aren't doing what you're doing, to push yourself in a way that's not just about how do I use this camera, but how do I see through the viewfinder.
Did they also incorporate some type of business in there as well? Because sometimes I see a lot of artists who have more of an art-focused education. They struggle with actually selling themselves or just asking what's the compensation? How much am I getting paid? Where I have a finance background, and at times I feel I lack that artistic side. So I always tell people to try to find that perfect balance. Did you receive any business education in college as well?
We did have a class that was focused around taxes, as a freelancer.
Very important.
And I didn't really pay too much attention in that class. I was like, get me into the studio. I just want to get through this class and get out of the way. They tried to teach you those types of things. And again, it's when you are getting any type of bachelor degree at a 4-year college, you have to take a finance class or whatever. You have to take a communications class. You have to do those things. But again, that knowledge is all out there and it's free. You don't have to go to college to get that type of knowledge. But again, it's I had to go sit in in that tax class like for so long. So some of the information obviously like absorbed and retained, but like if you didn't have to go take that class to get that degree to complete the thing, it's like how many other 22-year-olds are like actually like going on YouTube and looking up like tax for beginner, you know. It's like I know a lot of people that don't know anything about taxes because that's not really information people are like seeking out for fun. And I don't think that I would have been like seeking that out until later in life when I was like, oh God, what am I doing now?
Yeah.
So it's nice to just have a base level knowledge, I guess, built in.
What brought you to Philly? Because now let's just say you graduated from college and you're still in Ohio. Did you move anywhere else in the meantime, or did you come straight to Philadelphia?
In college, I definitely tried to really focus on fashion photography. That was kind of always the dream, the goal. In college, I did an internship in New York, and the only internship I was able to find was at an advertising agency that clients were Anheuser-Busch and Diageo. So, you know, we're doing a lot of food and drink, lifestyle shoots, not fashion. Like they did have a couple fashion clients, but it was mainly working with food and bev all day. And that was not what my portfolio was gearing up to be. That's not what my dream was, but I ended up really liking it. And then randomly after college, I stumbled into this year-long food photography fellowship at the Time Inc. Food Studios. That was what they were at the time. They've now since been bought out by another media conglomerate, Dotdash Meredith. But so that's like Time Magazine, that's the media conglomerate that owns them. All of their lifestyle brands are actually based out of Birmingham, Alabama. So like Southern Living's down there, Food and Wine magazine, and they have this huge food test kitchen. Again, I say I stumbled into this because I was applying to everything. I was graduating and needing a job. And the person that had this fellowship a year before me went to FIT, and her whole senior thesis was a food magazine that she had made. And then here I am with no food photography in my entire portfolio thus far, no interest in food. And I somehow got it because they needed somebody that knew Capture One. And again, a lot of these colleges, they're not teaching applied lessons, they're teaching art. Yeah. And so I understood the technicalities of being on a set already, and they needed somebody that could start and jump in immediately. So I got that opportunity, moved to Alabama, loved it, but it was only a year-long program. And so once that program completed, I moved back to Ohio, started freelancing in the Cleveland area, worked for a really lovely company called Berkel Hagen, who I absolutely adore the guys that run that studio. They were super kind to me and like brought me in very frequently, offered me an internship so I had some steady work at the time. And they're another food photography studio, but they do more commercial work. So that was really interesting, getting to see a different side of food photography. The work that's in a magazine for food photography is definitely more approachable in its creation. Like it's not fake. Like everybody thinks food photography, all the food is fake. Their food for a magazine has to be real because it has to be something that the viewers can approach and recreate. Whereas when I was on the commercial set, the ice cream is fake. It's like all has to be perfect. Like they're selling a whole different notion to the viewer. So it was really interesting to see two different sides of like one industry and one coin. But again, I still had that little like desire to do fashion in the back of my head. But now my whole career is like becoming food. And then I had applied to Urban Outfitters, and I get a call that they want to bring me in for an interview. And I said, okay, well, at the time I was living with my parents, and I love my parents, but I was like, I cannot keep doing this. I am a grown adult. I got to get out of here. So I told the people at Urban Outfitters, like, hey, October 1st, I'm moving. Like, I'm either moving to Cleveland because I'm building like a client base in Cleveland, or I'll move to Philadelphia. But like, you have like a week to make up a decision. Like, so I'll come and interview, but I need to know in like 2 weeks time, like where I'm moving. And they were like, we need to hire somebody immediately. So like, let's fly in. Came in, interviewed for the job. I got along with the team, and it really was a quick paced decision. Now being on staff in a photography role for 7 years, that's not the case all the time. A lot of times it is, we have 6 months to find the right person and we'll hire freelancers until then. But because this was such an entry level role, they really did want to hire immediately. And I got lucky that my timeline I gave them, which that's a lot of balls to give a big company a timeline like that when you have no experience. But I did, because I needed to get my stuff out of my parents' garage. And they hired me, and that next weekend I came up with my mom and we looked at apartments in West Philly, and I signed a lease that day and I moved October 1st.
You're at Urban Outfitters now, you're working in-house. I have always been freelance. I came in freelance. A lot of people I hang with are freelance, and we always talk and discuss the pros and cons of being in-house corporate or freelance. I freelance at Urban as well, at Anthropology, and I used to freelance at Terrain. What are the pros and cons in your eyes, or did you always want a corporate steady job?
I think I definitely went into my career wanting to be on staff somewhere. I think that's just kind of like my personality is seeking more steadiness. I've always just kind of been like that. I could think and go philosophy wise, like why I'm like that and why I'm built that way all day, but let's just say that's how I'm built. I seek steadiness, and I think that if you want any sort of stability or steadiness, you have to have a staff job. I think there are so many benefits of a freelance lifestyle and career, and steadiness is not one of them.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
So I definitely have sacrificed other things by taking a staff job. But I knew going into it that I would be sacrificing those things. I think you don't make as much being on staff somewhere. You don't have the same maybe creative opportunities being on staff that you would if you were a freelancer. But to me, I feel like the job I have is the perfect balance. I know a lot of people that have staff roles that they never get to do anything creative, and Urban Outfitters really nurtures their staff photographers and people, and tries to give them those opportunities occasionally because they recognize that that's what's going to retain talent and keep people happy. So I definitely feel like I get a good mix of, I come in, I do the same job every day. There is a lot of repetition in my career, but I do get to have these moments where I get to do really fun, creative things. And I think the thing that keeps me at my job and keeps me in my career is that every day I'm working with really cool people. And so, we have freelancers coming in on a daily basis. The models are freelancers. The hair and makeup are freelancers. So it's cool to talk to people, and they're just coming off of New York Fashion Week and they're telling you about the runways they walked and the stories that you get to gather just from being around the different freelance people and different creative people. I get that. I'm not working with the same people every day. I get to work with the new people and different personalities where I still am on the same set every day. So I might still be doing the same thing. But again, I'm meeting new people. It doesn't always feel like the same day over and over again.
Are you working Monday to Friday?
Yes.
So every day you're in the studio shooting?
I would say most weeks I shoot 4 days.
4 days. How do you still find your creative voice and working in a corporate work environment? Because I noticed you have a website and you have some food and you have some personal projects on there, but your work Instagram seems very heavy, like urban. Do you feel as though that's still you in there, or do you lose yourself a bit in executing a vision for 7 years?
Well, I feel like those are two separate questions in my head.
Yeah.
I think having the career I have, being on staff, it could prevent somebody from going out and pursuing other opportunities. But to me, there's never a day that passes by that I don't have a camera in my hand. And I feel like my drive and my hustle to always be the best version of myself and to always learn and to always grow pushes me to do things outside of work on top of my work. And I think that in the industry, you kind of have to be like that. Even if you're on staff, you know, I still feel like that competitiveness to seek greatness. Because, you know, there's layoffs, people come and they go. Like, you, just because you have a staff job, that doesn't guarantee anything. Like, I could be pushed out into the freelance world any day, and I got to make sure, you know, that I still have those connections, that I've still worked on myself and built my portfolio. So I wouldn't stay at Urban if I didn't also feel like my vision creatively matched their vision creatively. I feel like the work that I get to create at Urban is very in line with the work that I would be creating if I was doing test shoots on my own for my own portfolio. I feel like my style is very like youthful, vibrant, fun, a little satirical, and I feel like at Urban they kind of cultivate a very similar vibe. Like, I don't really see myself ever like wanting to do like high fashion or like couture. Like, that's not really my style to begin with. So I feel like even if I didn't work at Urban and had to go and freelance, I would be seeking very similar clients naturally, just because that's kind of my style by choice. So I am lucky that when I do get to do a fun creative shoot at Urban, that it naturally just fits itself into my portfolio, because that's the kind of projects I want to be doing anyways. And then I think sometimes the stuff I do outside of Urban, it maybe won't end up in my portfolio per se, because I'm doing it for financial purposes. Like, I love food photography, but I think, you know, if I had to choose between food and fashion, that's like a choice I would really hope to never have to make. Like, I love being able to do both. But I think maybe I'm like a little bit more in tune with like portraiture fashion, just because I love getting to work with people and like talk to my subjects. But it is nice that I can do food and I can pick up those clients on the side and make a little bit of extra money. I do weddings sometimes. Like, I don't turn my head or my nose up at anything, because one, money's money, and you know,
we all need that.
We need it. But then also, it's a chance for me to be exploring like creatively as I'm doing it. Like, I second shoot for a wedding photographer here in Philly, and Elizabeth Hazier. Her work is super artistic. It's beautiful. It's not like just like I'm shooting a wedding, I'm taking a picture of the mom and the dad and the blah, blah, blah. She is a film photographer, and so the way she's approaching her day is like as a documentary style photographer. Working in a commercial setting, I know so many people that would turn their nose up at weddings, that would say, I don't want to do it, it's not for me. But when I go and shoot a wedding, I'm not viewing it as like, oh, I'm shooting a wedding. I'm like, I have my camera in my hand for like 8 hours, and I have a whole sea of people that know that they're about to have their photo taken. They're not opposed to getting their photograph taken, and I'm kind of a fly on the wall as they enjoy this day. So to me, I'm just like, this is like street photography practice all day long, and I can just do whatever I want and walk around and like take photos of the things that I find interesting and fascinating. And that's a reflux that I'm practicing day of, that I can take to the actual streets when I'm doing other styles of photography.
So what is your process like? Do you shoot both film and digital? Because I'm curious, when I look at Anthro, they don't shoot film, but I heard through the grapevine, like at Urban, you guys sometimes actually shoot film for e-commerce and campaigns. So what is your process like?
For bigger campaigns and like bigger editorials, we do have a budget for film. I think it's great because all of the art directors, the creative director, they really have an appreciation for those types of like artistic practices, and they see the benefit in it visually. So it's not just like, oh, the bottom line. It really is about how are we going to set ourselves apart from other brands and be like the best of the best. And cultivating creative talent really does, cultivating creative talent really is at the basis of that. And so I think it could be very easy for a brand to be like, okay, this is an extra like $5,000 on this shoot. We don't need to do that. We'll just put a film edit on it. Mm-hmm. As a photographer, I can look at a photo and tell the difference between a film photo and a digital photo. It's very obvious. And so I think people might not be able to look at it and know the difference, but subconsciously they can see that there is a difference in quality and just like an aesthetic vibe. And so I think it's really nice that sometimes they will, spend a little extra money to get that more authentic, grainy image. I hate being that person. I feel like I always was like, I'm never going to be that person that's like pretentious about film, but I am pretentious about film because I think it looks better. And so I do admire our creative team that they won't sacrifice quality for the budget. And I think that's just kind of how Urban Outfitters is. Like, they're like, we've been around this long. We're not going to give up. We're not going to go down with the fight. Like, we're never going to sacrifice quality. Like, we're going to keep striving to be like this creative team that produces like excellent level quality work, no matter what the budget is, and like working within it to not ever sacrifice that quality. And so we sometimes do get a budget for film, but even when we don't, if it is a smaller shoot, a lot of us like still shoot film for fun. Like, I know the other photographer that I work with at Urban, he loves film. He constantly shoots a roll of film just on set, his own money, his own film, because he loves the look. And, again, sometimes we get lucky where we're getting to work with models that would be our dream models to work with anyways, getting to work on these projects that are like amazing anyways. But, maybe the art director wants the soft light. There is no money for film. Well, I already had this amazing hair and makeup artist do this look. I already have this really cool model here. Could you just go stand in the light for a couple shots and let me pull out my film camera, and then you can get the image that, maybe somebody else would have had to have set up a whole test shoot for, and you could just squeeze it in on your lunch break easily.
Very good.
And so I think trying to find those little moments is really important. But yeah, with film, it is more expensive, it is cumbersome, but I do really admire the look of film. So I'm glad I get to use it a little bit at work.
Do you prefer 35 or like medium format film?
My wallet prefers 35 millimeter because I get more frames, but I appreciate both for different purposes. I think they both serve different purposes and have like different looks to them. I think I just like film in general, like the whole notion of like waiting to get your images back and like not knowing what it's going to look like and how it slows you down a little. But my next camera purchase, my dream camera purchase is, I don't know what kind I'm getting yet, but I know I want a 6x6 medium format camera because I've like always been drawn to like square format, but I've never bought one.
How do you continue to educate yourself now? Do you do workshops? Do you look online at YouTube? Do you purchase tutorials? What do you do?
So I guess I will say that I didn't assist for very long, and I wish I would have assisted longer. Not that I would go back and change any part of my career. I'm so thankful that I get to be a photographer and get to work where I'm at now. But I find myself, even like when we have freelancers in, like kind of like sneaking a peek on their set and being like, how did they come up with this lighting? Because I think there's sometimes I have a creative vision that I'm like, how do I get there? And I think a lot of people I work with like definitely recognize that my lighting skills are strong, but I'm always like, they could be stronger. Like, they could always be better, And I'm like, how could I get better? I feel like when I go on YouTube, I already know all the things that I'm seeing on YouTube.
It's very simple stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're fine. Yeah.
When I started to freelance at Anthro, that type of stuff is not on YouTube. Like, you know, two heads with a scrim bouncing into an 8x8, and then it's a lot of bouncing of the light and a lot of just creative setups, and that stuff is not on YouTube. You have to really see it. So
yeah. Because again, the people that are doing the super elaborate light setups, that's how they're making their money. They're not going to be advertising it online for anybody to see. And the only way to really get that knowledge is to be mentored by somebody like that and be on a set and see it and assist. And so I feel like I did get lucky in my time in New York, getting to assist a lot of different photographers, getting to be on a lot of different sets and see a lot of different things. And then in Alabama, the people that mentored me were also very knowledgeable and willing to give information. But I do think, wow, if I had just like another year and I had gone back to New York and worked on more fashion-based sets and not just so much food and lifestyle, like the knowledge that I could have, attained through that. But life didn't work out that way. I jumped right into my career, and now I think to get any kind of technical knowledge, it really is just like asking around if I don't know how to do something and trying to figure it out. It's great that we have so much equipment at my work. So if I need to just go in and attempt something, I will. There's the Elixir software online. That's like a 3D rendering service that you can try different light setups within their software, and it shows you like a rendered version of what it would look like. I've done some things in that for fun. So there's definitely resources out there. But I would say my biggest thing that I focus on is less about technical learning and more about staying relevant with what's going on culturally, and what's popular and what's young and what's cool, and staying like inspired. I think that once people start aging out of a culture is once they kind of suffer, like artistically.
I'll totally see that.
And I think it's very easy to like come at life as like, I'm getting older, I'm gaining experience, I've mastered, I'm done learning, I'm complete, and then all these other people are surpassing you. And so it's so much better to have like a humble attitude of like, let me keep learning, let me study the youth culture, like let me ask questions, like, with all of the new technology coming out, like how can I use this instead of scoff at it? Like, and so I literally, like I go to art museums all the time, I go to art galleries all the time, I try to like see what's out there, see what other people are doing. And like one of my favorite things, because I work in fashion, I'm in fashion photography, so it's not just about my learned photography experience, but it is about my learned fashion experience. I love going to like concerts, I love going to art galleries and just looking at what are these like 20-year-olds wearing? Like how are they dressing? Like how are they acting? And like taking photos of that, because it is like a boardroom full of like 50-year-olds deciding, what young people are wearing. That only goes so far. Sometimes you just have to get out there and be in the trenches and be like, what are people wearing at this gallery on like a Thursday night, like in West Philly?
Yep, I'm the same exact way. What were some of the high moments of your career? You can maybe say like one or two where you were like, I'm doing this, I made it, I've arrived.
Oh, well, I don't feel like I've made it or arrived whatsoever. So I don't think that there's ever been a moment in my life where I felt that career-wise.
I'm sure the move to Philly was like, I'm doing this. Like I got out of Ohio, I'm in a new city.
No, you know what it was?
Yeah.
I was sitting on set one day, it was like last summer, summer before, and I was wearing this like long sundress. And when I was assisting, there's no way in hell that anybody would have let me wear a sundress on set. Okay. That's like obviously such a no-no. You gotta wear all black, you gotta wear pants, you gotta be ready to get up on a ladder at any moment, closed-toe shoes. But since I'm the photographer on set, I can wear the sundress. And I could wear the sandals with the heels that I was wearing. Because I'll get up on a ladder in heels in a dress. I do it all the time. And everybody's like, Gina, watch out. Like, don't go up there. Like, I'm fine. Because I'm an adult and I get to make my own decisions. And if I want to wear the dress, I'll wear the dress. And I remember sitting there. I'm also a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian for like 10 years. But growing up, I wasn't like allowed to be a vegetarian. And I was just like eating this like tofu Thai dish I had packed and had my leftovers. I just remember sitting there, and the model was so kind that day, and everybody's like in a good mood. And I'm just like on my lunch break, like eating my tofu leftovers, wearing my sundress, and just being like, wow, I crafted this life. And like, I get to just like, this is my mundane. Like other people would dream for this to be their mundane.
Nice, that's a good one. What advice do you have for someone just starting out in this industry? Maybe 3 things.
Ooh, okay. I gave a talk years ago at my college, and I imparted them all with what probably felt like doom, but I feel like is very sound knowledge and advice, and to me would be actually heartening if I was going into the industry, is that most of you won't make it in the industry, but you are still a photographer. Even if you don't make a dime off of your work, that money does not dictate your art. Money does not dictate if you're a photographer or not. Nobody gets to decide you're a photographer or not. You decide, is this a calling on my life or not? Because photography is a calling. Like if you are a photographer, you've been called to it, because nobody in their right fucking mind would choose this career path, would choose this life. And so you have to love photography if you want to be a photographer. And if you love it, you can do it forever and not make a single dime off of it. And it's still worthy. It's still just as worthy as somebody making money off of it. And I would say, like, keep going, never give up. It's a marriage, it's for life. There's gonna be lulls, there's gonna be ups and downs, and you just have to hold on. Somebody that really wants to get into a commercial setting and make money off of their work, I would say good luck, Godspeed, and just have a good attitude. Like, it's so much of it is networking, it's knowing people, it's never giving up, and it's being resilient and positive, and knowing, hey, like, I might not make a lot of money off of this, especially right away, and being okay with that. I think the best advice I would give to a photographer starting out would be to start cold calling people, to be inquisitive, to ask people about their careers and how they got there, and to try to just get on professional sets, even if it's just to view and not to help out at first. If people have the balls to ask, they'll be shocked at the yeses they'll get.
Mm-hmm. Final question. What are your goals for 2025?
Oh my gosh, 2025.
Give me like 2, 3, that really stand out.
This sounds bad. I don't really have a lot of photographic goals this year. I think just like consistency, just again, to constantly create, to shoot. I have more larger art-based goals this year. I feel like I'm in a really good place with my career. And now I want to kind of just gain knowledge in different artistic capacities, kind of go back to that Bachelor's of Arts kind of viewing, launching point. One of my goals this year is to write more. So I signed up for a writing class, and I have like a 500 word a week writing goal that I've been hitting.
Not including text.
No. If I ever miss the writing goal though, maybe like I'll desperately on a Sunday night be like, how many texts have I sent this week? I'm taking a drawing class at Fleischer Arts, which is an adult learning classes. And yeah, just like exploring my different artistic sides.
Nice. Thanks for sitting down, Gina. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is so lovely. Thanks for having me.
All right.